Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another DADCAW. It is 10:59 in the evening of Saturday, February 15th, 2020. A little bit past the halfway mark for the month, and we have managed to make some pretty good progress across a couple of the things that I set out to do when I made my channel map at the beginning of the month. And that, in and of itself, is rather exciting to me. I've also been noticing that, echoing something that I most likely said in the previous DADCAW, I'm actually feeling quite more present. Compared to January, where things were blowing by, this month by comparison has dragged on. As I said in that video, the previous DADCAW that is, I actually think this is a great thing. I'm very, very pleased with that. And I've recently been able to diversify my content a little bit, managed to get some map analysis done for Counter-Strike maps, and that's actually going to be of particularly important note to me because that will allow me to understand what goes into an FPS map and the anatomy of it, and just further develop my sort of, I guess, the verbal palette that I can use to describe maps that will improve my understanding of what really makes a good map in an FPS context. Because eventually, when I design my own FPS as a sort of trial run of Unreal Engine 4, I should be able to put to use some of the concepts that I'm sort of ironing out when delivering the analysis in those videos. So that's been interesting in this past week. I think the Counter-Strike and FPS style of game in general that I would want is something that's similar to CS, where there's a fair amount of mechanical skill required in order to aim, for sure, but not quite so much as something like Quake, which doesn't really allow for positional players, strategic players, to show their stuff in the same way. Like, that is not to say that Quake and similar titles are not positional at all and have no strategy to them at all. It's simply that I think that if you had to stratify them based on like what was the most, important skill to learn, would it be mechanical skill or would it be strategery? I think obviously CSGO is still a very mechanical game, but it at least has more room for strategic players to work at their magic, and there's not really the same deal afforded to strategic players in Quake. At least that's my layman view of Quake anyway. I still have to take a closer look at that game, which actually we can talk a little bit about FPSs, I guess more broadly speaking, because Deus Ex isn't quite an FPS, but we did start and conclude that playthrough this week. Went it in 3 different segments, and I am completely done with the title. I will be dropping it. I have no interest in pursuing it. I totally fucked my save file anyway, I'm pretty sure, since I started like 3 different branches of the same quest, trying to figure out what was going on there, and I'm almost certain that things are busted. The quest is telling me that one of my secondary goals is to go meet some woman I killed already, so stuff like that tells you the game is not really all that. And certainly some of these exploits are accidental, and others are more, I guess you could call them incidental, where it's somebody telling me a code in a chat, right? RoomTech was hacking for me, basically cheating for me, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll just open this, and then totally destroyed my save. But even if that hadn't happened, I almost certainly would have gotten rid of that whole game. By the 3rd video, it became very obvious that it was not a title that I was very interested in past the first stream. And then, 2nd and 3rd ones come by and nothing changes. In fact, the game gets worse and more overloaded, more bloated in terms of its mechanics. Just one of those games where you want to dismiss it outright. So whenever I do return to FPS streams, I will be going back to Wolfenstein and Doom 2 and Quake 2 and all these other games. And maybe then I will have a more fleshed out perspective on Quake, but it is indeed my current and admittedly layman experience or view that compared to CS, Quake is significantly more skill demanding in terms of mechanics, but it doesn't allow the same, doesn't afford the same opportunity for skill expression to strategic players who want to, outwit their opponents. Certainly you can have less mechanics than the other guy and still win in Quake, but I think the degree to which you can have that disparity and still show mastery in some way is less. And so that's sort of what I was getting at there. But the reason to throw Deus Ex into the mix is just the fact that it actually has a lot of RNG associated with even shooting in the game that I find quite just antithetical to an experience that you would want in an FPS. And RNG is obviously the antithesis of skill. You can't even really mitigate the RNG without upgrading, and that just involves grinding. So yeah, not my cup of tea at all. And just one of those things that reminds you, like, wow, if you're delivering a worse experience than the very first Half-Life game, there's some seriously fucked up shit going on in your game engine, man. Refer to my Half-Life video series and more specifically my reviews if you're not quite sure what I'm getting at there. But yeah, Deus Ex isn't even going to get a review. That's how fucking... I mean, I would feel weird reviewing a game I didn't fully play anyway, but that's how abhorrent the experience actually was. And that's sort of what I was led to believe when I was sitting down to do it, but I really didn't want to poison the well. I really didn't want to come in with like expectations already set up, you know? So I was aware that people had said that about the game, but I wasn't really ready to just cast judgment on it based on that, even though generally speaking, the people who are telling me that can be trusted when it comes to this sort of thing. Like they tend to be spot on with whether or not something is fucked or anything like that. So yeah, I should have listened. I should have stayed far away. I should have saved myself the trouble, but I did not. But at least I have 3 streams of me suffering, and so that can be, fleeting entertainment until we get to the point where we're playing something slightly more engaging. But yes, indeed, we will be returning to FPS games at some point as far as the playthroughs go. And yeah, sort of coincides with the CSGO map analysis anyway, where I'm able to experience some of what the custom content community for that game has to offer, and definitely getting me thinking in a different mindset when it comes to designing those maps, or really just trying to communicate my ideas on the maps. It's one of those challenges where I haven't flexed that particular muscle in a while, so it's interesting to get back into the swing of things. I think the next map that I do will probably be Anubis, but in general, I'm just going to run through all of the Map Core finalists and honorable mentions, and then after I'm done with that fairly large list, I will go back to some other maps that I play frequently, like Iris, and there's probably 1 or 2 other ones. I think some that didn't make the list. Oh no, Feast I think is on the honorable mentions list, but I'll definitely do that one as well, because I think that map is interesting. Anyway, outside of the Counter-Strike stuff and outside of the FPS stuff more broadly speaking, we can talk a little bit about the Brood War content that we've been able to make lately and get some progress done on. Definitely been focused mostly on the AI for my full toilet submission. That will hopefully be done soon. The AI, at least, which should be concluding its development fairly soon, because presuming we can make Zerg AI operational, that will take care of 2 of the players, and there's really only 1 other potential player, which is a Terran AI, which hopefully is rather simple to implement, that I will be implementing as far as writing a new AI script. Otherwise, I'm just going to be fleshing out the fraud AI. So looking good there. And I'm also itching to return to Stormborn and to Hydra so that I can put some of these lessons that I'm learning to use. But really it hinges on how efficient I can make my Zerg AI and trying to figure that stuff out. So I've got a short to-do list on that and certain options that I can weigh and figure out. But not really a whole lot else just yet, I suppose. I guess other than that, there really isn't that much to talk about. I've been able to be pretty strong on streams for quite a while now. Still have not broken my streak. And believe me, this week was weird because I had to do some wild training and some other stuff at work. And then I also had to do a family event. And so the stream schedule did get screwed around with a little bit, but I was still able to make every day. And more importantly, make Deus Ex and just get it out, because that is like a time sink that I really should not have wasted my time with, because it's not even like you got some particularly compelling video to watch out of the whole TISM experience. It's still dumb. It's just boring most of the time, and it's just me being bored. It's not really anything that you can say as grand commentary either. So I don't know, just go watch Dark Void. That's a more entertaining playthrough. That being said, Dark Void aside, I think that really does it for our DADCAW. You know, obviously a rather short one, kind of phoned it in. I guess I can briefly touch on my plans for next week before I close things out. This is sort of becoming a public-facing weekly planner anyway, but the plan for the next week is to, like I said, finalize the AI of my full toilet submission, Stormborn submission. Then maybe go back to Stormborn, actually. Otherwise, I can always go back to Toddborn, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. Still no progress from iQuire, because he's obviously super busy working on stuff for UED Commander and for his own full toilet submission. So there's time for that yet, but otherwise we are sitting down. We are hanging. We're trying to get our AI functional. And I guess since Deus Ex ended up getting destroyed in 3 streams, I'll probably be doing Ascension of Duran, a Brood War custom campaign, in the next couple of days. So that'll be Tuesday and Wednesday most likely. So I look forward to blowing you guys kisses, and I hope you guys had a splendid Valentine's Day and a splendid week in general. We are going to be back tomorrow, as always, with a mod stream in the morning, and then I will see you guys for Ascension of Duran or some other custom campaign. If I feel like there's a better one out there that I want to do first, that'll be Tuesday, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, more map videos for CSGO are also going to be in the pipe shortly. Thought about doing one today, but I ended up playing Deus Ex instead, which was definitely not a good use of my time. So just know I won't be making that mistake again. Bye.